Hey everybody, welcome to What the Flick. Taking a look back at season 1 of Hulu's The Handmaid's Tale with Grace, Meredith, Alonso. I feel like I should just shut up and let y'all talk for a while.
I don't. Wow. Okay, so first off, real quick, who else has read the book? Okay.
Like 30 years ago.
Yeah, yes, I read it like 10 years ago, but yeah, so.
But I was familiar from you that she's very involved in the writing of the show and in the production of this show. So early on when we discovered that we were both watching the show, you were saying, I like the book and I also like the show. And that's sort of a rare quality to
now
find.
Now that it's over, I like the show more than the book.
Explain yourself.
So the book took from the 80s, and it's definitely very pointed from that time period. The show updates. Well, it actually does update, because in the book, it's not. Offred is the daughter of somebody who already had lived through the whole purge of America. So they make the direct connection that this is Offred. This is she was the one escaping. It's almost like she took the mother's role as well as Offred's
Has a daughter of her
own.
own.
And go on.
No, I was just going to say. So are we going to be calling her Offred or June? Because I feel like I just feel so much.
We should call her June.
Okay,
You're right.
June,
yes, not her patriarchy name.
Her name is June. So and then when oh my God, why am I blanking on the author? Wow.
Margaret Atwood.
Margaret Atwood, thank you. Yeah. When Margaret Atwood had so much to do with this, and I feel like it's updated to, in more ways than I ever expected it to reflect this current period, as if they were writing the episodes week by week and filming it in a 24-hour period. So I love all the updates they make. I think it's more relatable to my generation, younger generations, where I think my mother understood the book a lot more, where this one feels a lot more grounded. And they've deviated. They've deviated in a lot of the side stories, the backstories. We've gotten a lot more, and I love it. I love because we get a chance to explore these characters that I wanted to know more about in the books.
Yeah, and for me, when we're talking about the characters, the casting of this show is so impeccable. There doesn't really seem to be a weak spot for me, and I know we've extensively talked about this off camera. I'm a huge Gilmore Girls fan. When I saw that Alexis Bledel was going to have a major role, I was a little bit skeptical, because everything that I've seen Alexis Bledel in, that's Rory Gilmore doing that, including Mad Men.
Yes.
I was very excited that Rory Gilmore is now an actress in Mad Men. But this, when she off Glenn, and Emily, we'll call her by her real name, because I just feel for these characters. When I got to know Emily's character, I'm totally on board. I'm very excited that she's getting picked up for season 2, and I think that's just sort of one example of the casting of the show being so spot on, even to a sort of a cynical, skeptical viewer like myself. I wasn't really sure about Elisabeth Moss, I guess, because that was another. Well, no, I love Elisabeth Moss, but it's such a major role for an actress. She has to carry this entire show.
I got to go back and watch Top of the Lake, which I haven't seen.
Top of the Lake is so good.
Okay, and you were still dubious about her?
Well, no, it's just that it's a big task for even the best actresses, and I think this has proved that Elisabeth Moss is just hand her that Emmy, because she took it on so seamlessly. She's in almost every single scene. She acts her ass off.
And it's the subtlety in that acting. That's really where the nuances get you.
I think that she just shows this entire range, because she has to go from before Gilead was Gilead, when it was the United States of America, and play that with sort of joy and what's going on in this character's life. What are her issues then? She's interested in a married man, and then she also has to be Offred and this person that is just so beaten down, and she does it amazingly.
The flashbacks have real impact, because you're so used to her kind of keeping her head down and knowing what the rules are in Gilead, to see her as this sort of more this freer human being, and she really marks that difference. I mean, in the last episode, there's that flashback to her first getting hauled into the Red Center or whatever, and it's like you can see the fear on her face and just all the stuff that she would later be hiding, as that same character. Was fascinating to watch. I was actually kind of reminded of the Purge movies in a weird way, in that, they're pretty stupid, but the thing is, when that first movie, it's like they set up this alternate, future US where this, weird evangelical, theocracy has taken over. And it's such a fascinating premise, and then the movie winds up just sort of being this home invasion film. You're like, no, I want to find out more. Where did this government come from? And so I like
that.
Exactly. So I love that Atwood and via the people putting the show together was like, we get to see what that transition was like and how it happened and what these people were like in the old country or in the old, when there was a USA and just all those steps along the way and then little corners of how this world works that Offred, that June wouldn't necessarily have access to seeing and finding out how that stuff functions. I was fascinated by all of it.
And it was really well done in a comprehensive but not too over the top way. I love the flashback scene of when their credit cards
suddenly stop working. Just the women's credit cards suddenly stopped working, and their reaction to that was, how you would expect their reaction. Be like, well, it's probably temporary, and just the way that they reason and find they find a rationale for this crazy world is so relatable.
Yeah, you keep pushing that bar. Every little thing, you're like, oh, it'll get better. It'll get better, right. and that is exactly how we look at our own history. Well, the world history of how we start to see the systematic rights of people taken away. It's rarely is it a huge revolution that's all suddenly at once. There's always a little bit at a time until they take that.
If you're not following Amy Siskind on Twitter or Facebook, she's been doing this amazing thing where every week she's kind of like, here's what's happening. This is new, this is different. Let's not take for granted that suddenly this stuff is going away or being handled differently. Like she's super keeping an eye on the government as it exists right now. And it's like, we have to not allow things to get normalized when we are in the middle of a slow-mo fascist coup, which is kind of in a lot of ways what's happening in this country.
I mean, it's like I said, the direct parallels to when the show was written and filmed to even today. Like we were saying earlier before this is, I wonder how season 2, how much more direct season 2 is going to come into play with what's going on in our world.
Yeah, because it is so unsettlingly timely in many ways, and it sort of makes you wonder where they're going to pick up for season 2 and how far they will go with that. Because I'm sure everyone now knows. The writers, I'm sure, know how people are sort of looking at this and they're making memes, they're making jokes out of, oh, get ready for Handmaid's Tale, like really excited to, I think red is my color, so I should be fine.
Oh, go on.
No. I tried to start watching season 5 of House of Cards. I'm just like, oh, I can't. I just can't right now. Like we're gonna talk about it on What the Flick at some point, but it's just like I just can't even with this right now. And this is at least like at enough of a remove and this sort of like nightmare scenario that it doesn't at least feel like I'm just watching more of the news, So
a question that I had for you guys was, how did you feel about the flashbacks in every episode, how it would always relate to something? So for example, you would have the birth and then the birth of Janine's daughter.
Janine's
daughter, and then that flashes back to the birth. There's always these tie-ins with the flashbacks. I actually really liked them because usually I'm a little so-so on flashbacks because I think it's such an obvious plot device, and I'm a little hesitant to go all in on a show that's based so much on flashbacks. But I really liked the way that Handmaid's Tale sort of tied them in, and they weren't heavy-handed in the way that they did that.
Yeah, I think it was fantastic because you need to ground the viewer, and you need to remind everyone at the top of the episode, basically, this is how things were, and this is how things aren't that way anymore.
Was it that way in the book as well, where they would always have those flashbacks?
I don't remember.
It's been a while since I've read it, but I think the book is pretty much pretty linear as far as like this is all happening now.
Yeah, she'll mention, but like I said again, the Offred.
June.
Well, yeah, and just she is Offred. She doesn't have those memories like June has in the series.
But that's true. It's set up like we're further in the show. The revolution is still new. And so these people did have a life before and a life after, and I thought that was really well done, kind of parallel structure, and it really gave you a lot of insight. Like in season 2, I really want to know about Aunt Lydia's pre-revolution life. I really want to know.
I want that story.
Because there was a great interview with Ann Dowd and Margot Martindale, who are two of my favorite actresses for New York Magazine, and Ann Dowd was saying like, oh, people talk about, oh, that character's so evil and blah blah. And I thought, well, she doesn't think she's evil. She believes in what she's doing. She thinks she's part of this great cause.
I think she's less evil than
Serena Joy.
Serena Joy.
The Serena Joy backstory is fascinating.
I know, but I have no sympathy for her anymore.
Well, by the final episode, it's gone. But like, it just reminds you, like, I think people look at a show like this and they think, oh, it's gonna be a bunch of like man bashing. And it's more about patriarchy bashing, because I think there are plenty of women who will be party to this sort of thing for whatever reason. You look at Phyllis Schlafly, who for generations was this like hardcore, staunch anti-feminist. And it's like, do you not get what you might benefit out of feminism? But she was like dead against it all the time. There are plenty of women who are willing to be accomplices to this sort of patriarchy, and I think that it's interesting that the show doesn't sort of paint like, man bad, woman good. On both sides we see people who either understand that this is a horrible thing or who are all too willing to be part of it. And so I find the mindset of women who are that opposed to women's agency to be just fascinating, and we see it throughout. I mean, this was originally came out of the massive anti-abortion movements of the 1980s, under Reagan and stuff, and we were seeing those people never went away, and it just gets it's as bad now as ever, and so that's why this show I think is as timely as ever.
Yeah, and I think they did such an amazing job of showing how you could reason, how you could find a way to reason against your own cause. I mean, ostensibly she should know that this is what she should believe in. I'm talking about Serena.
Yeah.
And they did a really good job of sort of flexing that out a little bit and showing why she believed in that, what was in it for her. She got a little bit of fame, a little bit of glory, notoriety, and how that was all stripped away from her. But I absolutely want to know about Aunt Lydia and what is her backstory, because she was such a fascinating character, and it makes so much sense reading I haven't read the interview from the New Yorker, but basing off what you said with Ann Dowd, and just you can tell that she has sympathy or empathy for her character that she's playing, and that is so crucial to relaying such a character that you're kind of hate, like Aunt Lydia. But you can tell that she does believe what she's doing.
And she loves those girls. She there was that moment when they were going to go stone Janine, and she just she was just incredulous, and she just kind of was like, no, you're not going to touch my girls to the guardsmen, and she just kind of
I mean, and they will be disciplined, but you're not going to.
And that's crazy to see that she loves the law, she loves the good book, but she loves those girls, even though if you were to write out all the things that she's put them through on paper, you'd be like, oh, she's a monster, and there's an argument for that as well.
She's a monster, but at the same time, she believes in what she's doing. She thinks she's helping them. She thinks she's like the way their lives were before was terrible, and now it's good. And I thought that was fascinating that the second Offred even was sort of like, look, I was a crack addict, and I now have a roof over my head and 3 meals a day. Like, this is a sweet gig, and I mean it's awful, but like, yes, I could see where that's like, I was homeless and now I'm in jail, but at least I'm in jail and I have a bed. These are two shitty choices, but I can see why one might be a little better than the other one, even if they're both terrible.
That was one character, and again, it might have been just because I was so attached to Alexis Bledel as Offred. that was one character in one particular scene that I didn't quite understand, because you're still living under, your existence is horrible. You're getting systematically raped. Oh my God, how.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was important to show that as it happens, the original Offred gets removed as well in the book. But I think it was really important to show just how disposable and interchangeable women are.
Right.
Yeah. This show is so much about rape and about how it's the banality of evil argument. The torture doesn't sound so bad when you call it, enhanced interrogation techniques.
A ceremony.
And a ceremony, and it's not rape, it's a ceremony. It's a blessed. We pray first, it's come on. And it's a show about rape, about rape culture, and about how dominion over women and removing their choices and their power is so intricately woven into certain power structures. It's that argument that you always hear about feminism, that feminism doesn't just exist to liberate women, that it's to liberate men from these sort of outdated and equally damaging, or not equally damaging, but also damaging kind of gender roles that they feel the need to participate in.
Because honestly, if it was all just about like, women, men, we're not reproducing, our birth count is down, they could have easily have made the Handmaids' wives why have a handmaid to begin with when you could just pair off, viable people together? Right. And no, it was about, it's all about the systematic oppression of women, because you only really see women in these diminutive roles. Even Nick, the driver, he has freedom. Sure. He can go in his places.
And you could always find justification in the Bible for whatever kind of bullshit you want to do.
That was exactly what I was gonna say. You were bringing up the anti-abortion sentiments of the 1980s and how that movement began and how we still see it, of course, today. It did, as a Christian, as a gay Christian, I am always reminded of religious text that apparently serves to just demonize my lifestyle, sure. And they were quoting texts from the Bible in the ceremony, and if you were looking for it, you're gonna find it in that book, in most religious texts, you will. And I thought that was incredibly powerful, because it did remind me of the anti-abortion movement and of the, for whatever cause, how they can pick something out of context and turn it into something that it was just warp and pervert a religious text.
Exactly, in the same way that they throw, not Deuteronomy, with the Leviticus at queer people. Now, I mean, the history of this country has been like, slavery. They use the Bible to justify it. Not letting women vote, or not letting women have any, like own land or whatever. Not letting interracial marriages happen. There's always, you can find something in the Bible that will say, oh no, this is a bad thing. And so yeah, it makes perfect sense that the horrors of Gilead would be like, oh no, it's in here. And we see that over and over again in this country, and it's chilling and horrifyingly believable.
Well, and speaking of Gilead, what I'm excited to see in season 2, hopefully, is what is the world outside?
Yeah.
Because we really got to know this universe, and I thought that it was really well fleshed out. But then when they had the ambassadors come in from Mexico, I was really interested in that dynamic of just what is the world outside, and are they desperate, or how are they coping?
Well, I think you have other countries that are sort of horrified by what's happened, but at the same time, they're like, well, we're also not having any babies, and so if it's working for you.
And to have a female representative.
Yes, that was the most terrifying part of it. But and Canada, bless their hearts, they know how to handle a refugee. Here's your phone, it's got cabs in it. Here's your prescription ID card and cash. That's the other great metaphor of this show, as far as like things we're doing wrong now, is how fucked up we are about refugees. With today, the Supreme Court deciding to allow part of the stupid fucking Muslim ban. So anyway,
you're welcome to my. I posted a public Facebook rant about my thoughts on that.
All right, we'll look it up.
So a couple things too that the show did change. We saw a lot more presence of non-whites in this. In the book, Black people are hung and condemned the same as gays hanged. The same as gays, the same as deviants, the same as, so it's interesting.
Gender traitors.
Yeah, gender traitors. So it's
which
interesting.
I totally want to reclaim. Huge gender traitor over here.
I love that. But yeah, so I'm curious as to why. I mean, I'm glad they did, because I mean, obviously it's nice to see more representation, but that is a big change that they opened it up, where it was definitely a more male, white, secular.
Oh, and Jezebels. We should talk about that.
Oh,
because the idea that that was clearly sanctioned. I mean, it wasn't even just like this underground thing. When Moira, a character I love, says, they gave me the choice of the colonies or Jezebel. Like, okay, so somebody in charge knows this place exists and is running it, and so like it's this thing of like, yes, men in power get to have handmaids and blah blah blah, but they also need a place to blow off steam.
And that's what Fred said. Fred's like, yeah, I mean, people know about it. It's looked away, but we've got to have our fun too. And it's like, you sanctimonious, hypocritical asshole, like I say in everyday life.
Yeah, there's got to be just a little bit of corruption. Come on.
You know how boys are.
Oh God, awful.
And I thought they did they did a great job of painting that, because you do have a large conversation with the sex work industry. There are people who wholeheartedly choose to be in it, and they are very happy. But then there are people who are forced into it. And so I thought they handled it very well, especially when it came to Moira, because she gave up, but then that was reignited, and she's like, no, I want more than this, and I want better than that. But there were some women there who were very content in that role, and I think that they handled that well, because that's always a debate that I'm I tend to, because I have a couple of friends who work in the adult film industry, and I hear them speak a lot about that, and I think it's very important to understand agency when you choose to take it versus when it's forced,
Yeah, they definitely didn't. I don't feel like they painted the entire Jezebel, I guess, network with a broad brush. It seemed like you could see there were very different sorts of personalities and people that were represented there, and that made the most sense too, because there was. Some people would choose it. Some people would happily choose it, and then some people would not, and they would prefer the colonies, which I still am a little unclear.
Yeah, we don't know what that's.
But it sounds awful.
It sounds,
I don't know if I want to know.
It's always a threat. It's like it's being sold down river.
It's like where all the nuclear waste and all the disgustingness of and that makes me wonder how much of America now is destroyed, because we only really see the eastern seaboard.
True.
From the Northeast.
But they talk about how the good things they've done as far as they've reduced their carbon emissions and blah blah blah.
But
and it's the one time you can get conservatives to take care of the environment is when you've completely fucked it up and everyone's sterile. It's like, okay, now we'll have a cap on things.
And also, I mean, come on, if we know Fred and the commander and half those men are sterile, why don't they should go away? They should be the ones put on the wall. Come on, we should have unsterile men. And
they should get tested.
Yes,
right,
they should.
But they're in charge, and that's
I know. But I'm just.
That's a thing that happens. Holy crap, so much food for thought, but an amazing show. I'm very excited about season 2.
Me too.
For sure, and there's going to be one, we know, so that's great. So yeah, hope you liked Handmaid's Tale, and I'm sure you'll have things to say in the comments.